I guess we should talk about like the start of this rivalry that like that kind of bloomed almost a decade ago. This whole thing didn't just appear over the Like That song. This thing has been almost inevitable from
So
2013 forward.
13. Okay, so do you want to start at? So you want to start at 13, or you don't want to go to Control? You want to start at 13?
Well, that's when Control came out, and even before
I
then,
thought 13. I thought it came out in 14. No, I'm wrong. I'm
I
just
think
flat
I
wrong.
think it's
Okay.
13.
Okay.
But
Okay.
even predating that, we had these guys doing songs together in 2012,
Yep.
2011 on Drake's album.
Kendrick first album on Poetic Justice. You had the hilariously now the the ASAP Rocky fucking problems that has Rakim
Yeah,
ASAP Rocky on there with 2 Chainz. Yeah.
yeah. Drake took Kendrick Lamar on tour early in his career, and
Yep.
it's almost like can you look at those like were those intentions pure? I don't know, but you could definitely look at him now and be like, oh, was he trying to get some type of upper hand on him? Was he trying to put something in his back pocket for later? I don't know. These are just suggestions. But it really all kind of broke open with the Control verse back in 2013. There was a Big Sean, Kendrick Lamar, and Jay Electronica song. I remember nothing about Big Sean and Jay Electronica's verses. God
No
bless
one
him.
else does either, so
God,
it's fine.
the whole thing was basically Kendrick Lamar saying, I want the crown, and I'm willing to kill everybody in the game. And he mentions pretty much
People by
all the
name.
relevant rappers by name. And at this time, there was a lot of We Are the World in rap going on. There was a lot of, the whole Miami connection. Just nobody really was saying each other's names like that. It's probably since like The Game, some years before that. Ironically, another West Coast person. But Kendrick Lamar,
Is that a concerning pattern?
I mean, they got a whole coast out there.
Are they built different out there?
Look, they not playing. But it was basically like, the names he said Wale, Big Sean, guys on the song with him he was talking about, but
Yeah.
everyone zoned in on Drake. And it was like, then Drake kind of responded.
Because at that point in time, Drake was the biggest star in industry by that point. Even, I mean, we are talking about at that point in time, we were talking about like Yeezus had just happened or was about to happen, and we are past like the Good Music compilation album with Kanye, and it's like he has moved, like he has kind of like put himself on like the back burner type of thing, and is now trying to get like his label over, if you will, or push his label, and so Drake is he's off of the success of him blowing up off of the mixtape, his first album, and his second album's already out there. Now at this point we're headed towards if nothing was the same. So like
started from the bottom at that point in time,
he's already ascended to like, if he's not going to be the top guy in rap, he already is. It's one of the two. Either he's going to be, or he already is.
Yeah.
And Kendrick is now, a year post his his breakout album.
Right. So like, at this point, these guys are guys early in their career. Still a lot to lose, like per se. Like we're, at this point, this thing happens 11 years after this. They've already had these legendary careers. They were in those formative stages, so something could have thrown them off majorly had this like happened a decade ago, right? But Kendrick was kind of ready for it the whole time. And Drake kind of responded to this in kind on the Shit remix. I don't know if you remember that song. It was a Future song. And they were sampling like Tear the Club Up. Kind of subliminal stuff. He also, kind of did some interviews where he's saying, this is where, can you remember anything from that verse? And then, this is a song of the moment. I'd rather do it when it's real. And then from there, these guys kind of circle each other for a decade in subliminals. This really like is familiar to, like guys in the 90s. Like the entire 90s of rap was guys just rapping about each other but not saying the names.
Right.
But with Kendrick Lamar,
like for a perfect example, I did not know until this year that Imaginary Player was about Mace. I had no idea.
Yeah,
I never knew that.
Like when you go in with that knowledge, that whole shit, check your own videos. You always be number two. It changes that entire shit. You know what else about Mace? There's another song called, I believe, is "Ride or Die" on Hard Knock Life. Is also about Mace.
Which one? One, two, probably volume one.
It's on a Hard Knock Life album. It's just called "Ride or Die."
Oh, okay. Sorry. So that's volume two. If you said Ride or Die, I was thinking of like Rough Riders, like the compilation. Okay.
Yep.
Okay. Gotcha.
Shout out to my man Frankie. 2 years on the subscription. Long time O&R supporter. Appreciate you, Frankie. But as I was mentioning, Kendrick Lamar kind of responds in that famous BET cipher where he does the high five, tuck the sensitive rapper back in his clothes, and everybody knows who he's talking about. And we're like, fuck it. It's time. Go. But it never quite gets there.
Yeah.
And then, like, the rest of the decade happens, like the rest of the next 10 years happens. So like Drake, continues to rap and sing and do various collab albums, stand next to a lot of people, try to bring younger rappers underneath him. Kendrick Lamar, kind of becomes like a much more of a recluse than he was at the beginning of stages of his career. Like he goes more in an artistic direction. So these guys are, while Drake is saying, I'm going to do whatever it takes to play the new streaming game, essentially between, doing all these various different styles of music, whether it's the UK stuff, whether it's the dance hall stuff, whether it's, the singing,
the EDM album.
Yeah, and the rapping, stuff like that, but never quite giving the hip hop album that most people want out of him. Always kind of just pulling it back a little bit, and I think kind of creating a large resentment that came back to bite him during this conflict. And Kendrick Lamar, on his end, he kind of goes, as I mentioned, into the artistic lane, kind of into making music that would kind of become the soundtrack for a lot of the decade and, political nature and, and just like, stuff with black folks in this country. And, and then he kind of goes almost too far in that direction where it's like, hey, bro, you got to reel it back in because, like To Pimp a Butterfly is very divisive, I would say.
Yeah, it is.
Like, it was like,
it is because like it's kind of trying to toe the line of his first album, or sorry, his breakout album is like he's a gangster rapper that is like kind of showing like from a pulled out macro level like this trap that black people end up in, right? Like he's one of Good Kid, Mad City thing is like the story of tons of kids all around this country, but it's specific about Compton, it's specific about him, it's specific about his situation, and it's a great come of age album, and I think is one of the best concept albums ever, right? And then the second album is, what do you do after that? Like you can't make a there's no such thing as a Good Kid, Mad City Part 2, right? So he moves on from that, and like I didn't necessarily love To Pimp a Butterfly, but obviously you have songs like All Right, and I Love Myself, and like those are great songs, but there are the parts where it's like, seeing some of the layers that were like consciously, not some incidental genius thing, like some conscious effort of like brilliance that were put into Good Kid, Mad City. Like you hear him say certain things, for me it was off-putting, right? So for me, I was kind of disappointed, or not kind of, I was very disappointed. So, but it wasn't like it wasn't a very good album. Just I was expecting another all-time album, and this wasn't necessarily the case,
right?
So. But at the same time, he's still like this at the time when he's actually still working with people. So like he's like, even though that's happening, he still hops on like a year later. He hops on the freaking Compton album and he destroys Deep Water for Drake. Hey, completely destroys it.
And taking a lot of shots at Drake on that song.
Yep.
And then from there, I think, Kendrick kind of realizes, he's like, hey, man, I got to kind of show that I can compete, because at this time, Drake is running off just with everything. Everything he's doing, this is like the peak of Drake for me. This is like, everything before Views, I feel like it's an iceberg when he hits Views. He's going nuts with the Nothing Was the Same album. He's going nuts with the first Future collab album, doing a lot of features around that point. And then like If You Reading This Is Too Late, where it's like, that for me, that's my favorite Drake album by
Right.
far.
And that was a special moment because like you got nothing was the same in 2013. Then like he comes back the very next year with as you mentioned that, and then like that's three straight years of new projects, and they're all fairly different. They're all very successful, and they all have smash hits on them, all of them.
Right.
And this is at the time like he's basically carrying like them Khaled albums, you know, like he is like the go-to guy for some of that, for a lot of that stuff. So like yeah, it's he's having his run. He's having his ace run, if you will.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Working with a lot of people like Ross, working with Future, working with just like people that are here today, gone tomorrow, like McConan, French.
Yep.
French, had more. Longevity
look,
than that.
People that had longevity again, we thought we're gonna be here to get going tomorrow, like Migos, Versace.
Yeah.
Like he Versace was a thing in Atlanta. That was not a thing worldwide, and he made it a thing worldwide.
Yeah. And at this point, then I think Drake runs into an iceberg, like kind of creatively, like because he's not getting that critical acclaim that I think he wants, and I thought he should have got at that point, right? But it just didn't for whatever reason. And this whole time, like as I mentioned, like there was still something missing from him. As good as If You're Reading This Is Too Late was, as good as a lot of that stuff with Future was, it was like, I think there's more in you. And then at that point, we get to Views, where I feel like is the iceberg of like, that's the second half of his career. I hated Views. This is the album that famously got Joe Budden, like, that blew his podcast up when he went on a rant, found Drake unmotivated, found him like a guy with no one to say. The album, he was miserable, it seemed like, on it. Yeah. There was just so much about it, and so disappointing at this point, because this was supposed to be like, the classic, and it just
he was setting
wasn't.
up for it. He was setting up for it. Like he was naming this album on the album that was coming out. Like the next album is called Views. Be ready for it. Right.
Right.
And another part about it is like, and this for me, context for me. This is 2014 is the point where like 2014, 15 is the point where I like, hey, I'm not in on rap. I'm kind of checked out. Like I feel uninspired by the music, and a part of that was like Drake's on his apex, and like I just don't like that dude. Like I don't like his ethos as a person. I just don't. Like he seems like a nice enough guy, but a lot of that stuff seems superficial with his friendships and connections with people. And like he's doing a collab album with Future, and for me it seems transparent as fuck. It's like you put like the young guy, like it's like you put like Darby Allin, he's tag team with Jericho. What does that feel like to you? Right? It's like this is a guy that sees somebody that is super talented and has like a buzz to him, rightfully so, because of what Future had done up to that point on his own, and like it's a top hit maker, like basically attaching himself to. Like it is the vampirism that we talk about with Triple H and Jericho, right? So it felt transparent. It's like also like he's not a threat to push him like creatively. Like they're going to get together, they're going to make bangers, and they absolutely did. Like that. Look, not bad, but like. Big Things, like
Jumpman.
Jumpman. Those are all time songs, but like at the same time, these are not songs where like Drake is not like Watch the Throne, where like Jay-Z is obviously a more talented with the pen than Kanye.
He's not challenged at all.
Yeah, but he's not challenged to try different things and step out of his zone. Like there is no Jay-Z rapping over on the second that back half verse of Who Gonna Stop Me. There is nothing like that. There is no like, even for them at that point, like the challenge of like bringing alertness to, hey man, even though we're super rich, like we are still facing anti-Black discrimination. Like there is nothing beyond just the moment. Like the moment is we have the hottest street dude and like the biggest pop rapper we ever had, and they're together making a song. And I mean, he even replicated that years later with the 21 shit. So. That was the start of like, all right, man. And then Mustard came around, and YG's like a gigantic star. I'm like, bro, I like YG, but he ain't, so for me, that's when I kind of checked out. But I'm still following these things as all happening. And like, I'm hearing Views is disappointing people, and I never listened to it until like probably like 3-4 years, and I was like, oh, this dude sounds angry. He sounds like he hates women, right? He sounds just like he. Like, the ascension, he got to the top of the mountain and like he's lonely on top of the mountain.
It's like he looked
honestly.
up there and he was like,
isolated.
this is it. Like I
Right.
believe he has a song called "Is There More?" or is it more like on like
I think
Scorpion
so.
or some shit.
Right. Yeah. But Scorpion and more views are way better than views. So
Yeah.
so that's
So at this point, he's playing the full streaming game, like these long ass albums, 20 something songs on them. He's got these individual songs that take off, a lot of viral stuff, goofy shit, Hotline Bling, good songs, but nothing that's like, all right, for the highlight reel. Goes through more life. He's doing weird things, calling it a playlist rather than an album. And this is more, all right, what Drake are we gonna get? Is this London Drake? Is this Jamaican dancehall Drake? Is this whatever
Afrobeats Drake?
Right, all these things like kind of muddy the message of like who Drake is, like what to expect from him.
And another thing is like we know what he sounds like, but we don't know what he has to say. And like this main thing about it is like ultimately for me, it came to like, wow, the top rapper in the game has nothing to say other than like, I got haters because that's what the position brings, obviously. And like, I have issues with women and that's because he's girl rapper. And I'm like, I find that to be very, very shallow. And like, I don't know how many more songs I'm going to hear of the same thing. And I was and for me, I was like, all right, man, he's top guy. He's super successful, whatever else. But like, I don't feel like he's ever had some classic album. And I don't feel like he's ever like told me anything really. So I'm kind of just like, all right, he's going to make a million more songs, but I'm not going to learn anything about him. I'm kind of done here.
Right. And then in this time, Kendrick Lamar feels like he has to wake up to see this streaming landscape that's going on to make these hits. And then he comes out with Damn, which for me is a 5-mic album. Basically, he strips back the complicated nature of To Pimp a Butterfly and makes it like very easy. Like you listen to Humble, it's like, oh, we've stripped this shit all the way down. You got Element, DNA, like all that shit is like very, and it's like he's on some different beats this time.
Right. Mike Will, because a lot of it is Mike Will.
Yeah.
And it's like, there's always going to be Soundwave around. And I mean, I guess we might talk about Soundwave at some point.
Absolutely.
What he helped contributed this past week. But like past that, like it is, all right, Pharrell's kind of cooked. Let's not go back there. Let's go with the hottest guy in the game at this point, and Mike Will. And Mike Will drops him off with some incredible stuff. And I thought it was a nice meeting in the middle between them, as far as like Mike Will can be very simplistic while shit sounds great. It can be very simplistic. And I think he challenged Mike Will to be like, all right, man, I need you to give me a second beat, basically a second sample for DNA. And then he throws in that ganja sample and it's incredible. And like, I think also at the same time, like it gets Kendrick into like, hey man, you thinking too much, just rap because you are an incredible rapper. And he gives you Element and you're just like, what is this? Not what is this? Because it's not like it's unfamiliar, but it's like, this feels like real hip hop. Like this feels like a DJ is mixing this, even though this is the record, and the DJ obviously just cuts on or whatever else, but like it feels just fresh and just awesome in a moment in time. Yeah.
Continuing from there, Kendrick Lamar then kind of goes on this absence. COVID happens. He's around very rarely.
Well, I think you're also forgetting, and this is also part that I think that I mentioned to you when you talk about like the where is he thing. Like he should get credit as saying like that Black Panther soundtrack is an album. You can say that. But people, but like when you look at his, his singles discography, that time missing. But it's like I think people need to point at like, hey, this man dropped Damn in 17, and then 18 he drops Black Panther album, which is also a great album, or soundtrack, which is also a great album. So like, but then you get into the part where it's like, all right, you have those back to back, and he feels like he's in his own world as like, and he can say I'm the best because look at what I've done.
Mm-hmm.
I have another classic masterpiece album, and I also have, the soundtrack to this super black ass soundtrack, and like
carrying the culture, as they say.
Yeah,
like it's very transparent. They weren't reaching out to Drake, the Canadian, for this. So like these guys are running. They're running these parallel races. You see these two blunts that I have right here? They were. They were like this, and they weren't really crossing paths, but still,
Right.
like I forgot who was saying it. It might have been Big Daddy Kane. It was like, hey man, eventually someone, when both guys are in the room and somebody says, I'm the nicest motherfucker in here, they got a battle,
Right.
but from there, as I mentioned, Kendrick kind of disappears, from that kind of being out there. COVID happens, which pushes back the music industry in various ways, except for Drake, who keeps, I don't know whether it's pressure from the record labels or any type of deal that he signed, but he keeps putting out these almost throwaway albums. I think Certified Lover Boy is awful. Honestly, Nevermind was awful.
It's honestly Nevermind is the EDM album, right?
Yeah.
It's a lot of that is like he has moved on full on into the pop factory, where it's like, hey man, people, you can love whatever pop star from whatever era you have, but there is someone you absolutely love that never made no class but churned out, multiple double, triple, quintuple platinum singles, right? But you look at that, you look at that discography, and you look at them albums, and you be like, I only remember like 3 songs from this. Go back and play, be like, nah, man, these things are just held up by these massive hits, right? So this is when he finally broke into that, and also it was at a time where like albums matter less and less every single year, and we're at a time where like no one, you got an album, that's whatever, but like they got massive hits, so it slides.
And he's turning over into the new class of guys. Like now he's working with like Lil Baby and Gunna and like different stuff like that.
And now he's rapping over Take Keith beats.
Correct. So like it's like, and he's doing his one-offs with like Block Boy JB and different stuff like that. But he's not.
And it seems that like as this keeps going and he keeps making more and more hits or whatever else. Like it's like, does 40 produce any of these anymore?
Yeah.
It seems like he realized like the hit factory is not with that guy. It's not.
Forgot to mention, in 2015, Drake gets into a conflict of his own with Meek Mill, which kind of puts and Drake during this whole time has had various like kind of dust offs with people. Went at like Tyga, basically. Went at Common. Went at as I mentioned, Meek Mill, and these are all what I would call safe opponents.
Tomato cans.
And
like, don't be wrong, Common's just too old for people to care.
Correct.
In that kind of situation.
It's like Common's just too far out of like, he's not speaking to the generation of listeners like in rap right now or at that time.
And even at his peak, he was not that level of popular.
Right. And I think it could have been a little problem, for Drake, but I think the whole thing with Meek Mill fooled so many people, where Drake kind of comes up with this new template of disses to where he's going to try to make this club song as a diss song on you, right? The ghostwriting allegations emerge, and
Quentin Miller, and the one story, the one Undertaker thing that Meek Mill did, where like
it was awful.
He did it, and you can barely hear what he make out what he's saying. He mentioned like, wait, did he mention that Meek Mill that Drake got pissed on at an award show? And we found out that story is verifiable for multiple people, but like Drake's sensitive guy, so like he can do no wrong in this place. So like he slides on all of it, because obviously he absolutely out raps Meek Mill to the surprise of no one at One Nation Radio. But Meek Mill is upper mid Carter in the rap game at that point in time. Like he's an intercontinental champion level guy.
Right. Like and you would think Meek comes in battle rap history, but when it comes to it, like Meek was not the strategist that he needed to be, as well as like not the lyrical wordsmith he would need to be to hang in with Drake. It was just too much. The back-to-back thing kind of like let everything mess it up for him. The memes buried him. Drake's owned the internet all throughout this era. Fast forward, it's time for Scorpion. And you know what I'm about to say. You are hiding a child. Pusha T comes in. Pusha T has some of the same weaknesses as previous opponents, like an older rapper, previous generation, different stuff like that. But Pusha T is so cold that it doesn't matter. Like, and Pusha T
It don't matter
sees
that he consistently raps over funky ass beats.
right, and with Pusha T, I think it was such a rejection of like the star that Drake is. Like he didn't try to come at him on this angle like where I'm going to try to do this for my career, and to a lesser extent Joe Budden goes at him a couple years before to Pusha T, and the blueprint is being laid on ultimately what's going to take Drake down during this Kendrick Lamar thing. The song after song after song thing Joe Budden did. The information that Pusha T has where he basically drops the blackface picture, calling into question Drake's identity, which he struggles with and never really had to answer for. Yep, struggles to this day. He gets called in with the the ghostwriter stuff again. You are hiding a child. You're hiding your woman. The whole thing with 40, and it's just like he's hitting Drake from so many ways to where Drake kind of has to take it on the chin. He did something called a Dubby freestyle, which was really good, but it wasn't Story of Adidon.
Didn't Dubby happened before Adidon, right?
Yes, and This is where Drake.
Remember, he's playing, but the whole time he's playing with Pusha T.
Right,
he's doing the whole thing. He's treating him like he's Meek Mill, and it's like T is Meek Mill. Pusha T is not Meek Mill, brother, and he plays it. He plays the whole game, and then at the end of the song, he says, "You know what? I should charge you. I should invoice you for the promotion for your album."
He's
right?
doing memes.
So then, doing the memes, right? So then Pusha T on Twitter says, "Send the invoice." And what does Drake do? He sends an actual fax to the office, right? For what? Like I think it was like $300,000-$400,000 and everything. And then Pusha T went out there and punched him in the fucking face. In audio form,
and
he didn't get off, and he put him on his ass and didn't get up. It was over.
And around this time, Drake kind of stops doing media. Kendrick Lamar never really did a ton anyway, but he does not do media either. And neither one of these guys appear in media almost to this day, aside from very controlled situations, such as like The Shop with LeBron James or.
So he can control his narrative, which is Drake. After he lost this, like he basically almost made it like I'm never going to put myself in a vulnerable situation like this ever again. And you see that LeBron barbershop interview, and you go over it, and you go through like he always has crafted this narrative that he is such a nice guy. Like he's different from all the other rappers because he's so nice. And he has all these relationships with all these rappers, and he's all nice to him and very generous. And like he takes them on tour, as you mentioned, and he does collab outs with these people that he's such bigger stars, and he's such a great guy. And he's hanging out with all like the college sports stars and the NBA stars, and he's everywhere during the playoffs and all that kind of stuff. And
through all that, resentment is building towards him. I think it's just when you're that public, people are going to be forced to like. No one's going to be in the middle on Drake. You're either going to not like how he gets down, or you're going to create, a generation of people that just grow up with you and see you just as that person there. Like people like 10 years younger than me, like my little sister, my niece, they grew up with Drake. They love Drake their whole lives.
Right. Like I remember Marvin Wilson in 2017 ends up a Florida State 5-star recruit, right? People ask these players these questions like, who's your favorite artist or whatever. He says Drake. Like, Drake's been the biggest star, since I was X age. I was like, in my mind, it did math like, oh, I'm old. Drake has been around since he was in 5th grade. Oh, I feel old. So yeah, he definitely is like, our Jay-Z, our Biggie, our Tupac, whatever you want to say. Like he was absolutely the biggest star for a generation of kids, and he's going to continue to be that. It seems like,
and moving forward, then as I mentioned, Drake's his output suffers at this point, like to where I think Dark Lane demo tapes is probably like his best project of the era up until For All the Dogs, which I think is just a decent album, and that's adding the stuff that they added on. Before that, I thought it was a bad album. I think COB was really bad, and it was just like. He's not getting the critical acclaim that he always was, but way
he's always craved.
Yep,
he's always craved it.
Yep, and the way the rap game had been set up, by streaming, like it was leaving him on top when someone feasibly should have taken his place. Like, this is where we saw the pandemic rappers that popped up and then didn't, on the other side of it, they didn't have anywhere to go because they were also playing that game. Make as many songs as possible. Don't worry about the quality. Get your streams up. You know, I don't even want to like go into the names, but you guys like pretty much know who they all are. But
I mean, there's two of them when they got the same name. One is Lil and one's Duh.
yeah.
And that's not to say it's not speaking on quality of level of rapper they are, because I think Lil Baby's a great rapper, but you know, like he's had a burnout period because they were flooding the market.
Yeah. Question from Slash Size. What about J. Cole escaping all this? I'm glad you brought up J. Cole. So
he's been the person that's been able to manage this in the middle better than both of them, and it has changed his. He was a recluse at first.
Yep. Like Cole, like kind of came in, kind of getting rolled out the same way as Drake. Doing the woman friendly records, being under the hip hop legend, under the Learning Tree, and then like after his second album, he kind of like is like, yo, this isn't me. And then he kind of like retreats into his own, creative space, which creates a golden era for him as well. Like, as James mentioned, he's a third guy that kind of like is like, all right, if you don't gravitate to one or the other, you'll probably like Cole because of the reality that he raps with, his kind of sense of being present in the moment, like, and kind of almost being accessible, kind of will show you like it does also retreats from interviews after a certain point.
Yep.
But you'll see his creative process. You'll see him kind of being this meme, double plat with no features, but then he opens up his creative thing to start working with people, and he always seems to come from a more pure angle than anyone.
Either one of them. He seems more altruistic than both of them. Yeah.
Yeah. But
as much as someone at that level in this game can be.
Right. Anyway. Right. But this whole thing, I hope we set it up so you guys have an idea of who these guys are at this point. With Kendrick Lamar, just this critically acclaimed guy who doesn't really seem to like you, and you don't know him. Like, you don't know what he thinks though, like as far as like his place in the game, anything like that. He just does his music, makes his classic albums, gets the fuck out the way.
Right.
Kind of.
Right.
Drake,
he made it like it's really quick to like I want to do the press. I want my album to succeed, and then like once we're past that and we're past the touring, I'm back to my family and back to the things I care about.
Yeah, Drake on the other hand, he got to be everywhere with everyone. He's got to be seen essentially.
Right, and this also in the backdrop of all this happening. Like we mentioned the Push T thing. Like the main thing in the forefront for Drake isn't actually Kendrick Lamar, it's Kanye. It's a clash of like who is the actual like who is the top like middle class superstar rapper, and like the guards being changed from like it was always Kanye was the first person to even invent this thing that we never know was ever going to happen, and then Drake took it, and like their real relationship as far as like Kanye being a narcissist and like not being able to handle the part where like he's being surpassed, and Drake going into his narcissism of like I've taken this dude's spot, and like he's a producer, and like so he's doing all these things, and like how do I handle like my narcissism with like my need to have everyone feel that they like me versus Kanye like leading out of the I'm a nice guy to like I'm just a raging ego. So that was the main thing for Drake for so long, and then like we got to a point where it's like the pandemic basically ended Kanye as someone that matters to serious rap conversations. So like that kind of made Drake where it's like he kind of got off the guard because like the motherfucker we thought was like the best artist of maybe ever generation as far as producing music, like has lost his damn mind. So like all this stuff that's happening with Drake is like kind of slide under the radar as far as major criticism, because like we're finding out this person that made Jesus Walks and is a Nazi, so like that's kind of
goes under the radar.
Yeah, like Certified Love Ball wasn't that good. Honestly Nevermind is a bad EDM album. Okay, but Kanye's out here telling us that he likes Hitler.
He's like, he's wearing White Lives Matter shirts, reappropriating the Confederate flag. Like,
and that started at Yeezus.
yeah,
The Confederate flag stuff started at Yeezus.
The signs were there. Like, but
we should have known when that man said he wanted a white Jesus piece. We should have known back then.
Moving forward into more the current day. So like I said, hope you guys like understand who these guys are. Drake also throughout this has really strange relationships with younger women, which are explored on his albums and also in the public space. Like people are monitoring these things, like grooming, these large age gaps as Drake starts to, grow into like a 30-year-old, like he has a relationship with like Millie Bobby Brown and different various models who are
Bella Hadid. He may or may not have dated Kylie Jenner like around the Tyga situation, and Tyga's younger than Drake, and that was weird with Tyga. And like, yeah, it's currently right now he turns 38 this year. He's dating Lotto's 21-year-old sister right now. It's 30-7. That's weird, man.
So a lot of this is happening. Like these are these warts this guy has. And Kendrick Lamar, you don't really know anything about him. Like he makes Mr. Morale and the Big Steppers, finally comes back. And it's a good album. I wouldn't say it's on the level of like, his previous work or anything, but it's like an album that kind of tries to humanize him a little bit. Tell us a few things about himself and, kind of reintroduce himself to the rap audience, like to where, he's a relevant figure because like his last album was in 2017. COVID fucked things up. I imagine he wanted to come out sooner than that.
Right.
But you look up and 5 years go by. You kind of get robbed of those COVID years. But moving on from there, Drake comes out with All the Dogs at the end of 2023. Takes a lot of shit for this, like just being. I think people reached their breaking point with him where they're like, he's never going to fucking do it. This guy's a knucklehead. He doesn't fucking get it. It's like the same shit. He's not growing up. It's like he's essentially all the complaints like that you had about Views. All the other works were almost
starting from Views and then moving on. Yeah.
It was like almost all in one in there. And even though For All the Dogs was a little bit better, quality wise than some of the previous projects, he was bullied by the reaction so much, he went back in the studio to put like 8 or 6 more songs on it, which, he's coming out rapping. He's coming out swinging a little bit. And it saves the album kind of, I think, perception-wise. But we remember what that first, cut sounded like. On that album, though, is an important song, Where the Beef Begins. This is Patient Zero. And it's a song called First Person Shooter, which we later found out Kendrick Lamar was asked to be on this song.